Okay, we're good to
Awesome.
go.
So great. Again, welcome to our introduction to the EIR program, hosted by Allie Landy and myself, Matthew Chin. And this is just a welcome to the Engineer Residence Program and an opportunity to explain more about how it works and allow you to ask some questions on anything any specifics that you would like to learn about the program and how it runs throughout the year. So, to give you a little background and look into the behind the scenes of the Engineering Residence Program, it is run and organized by engineers of tomorrow, and in particular, the four people that you see um, on the slides. Erica Lee Garcia and Becky White are two core um, organizational people, and Becky would be the person that you are mainly in contact with and would be the face of our kind of program organization. And then myself and Allie are both students with the University of Waterloo who are on a co-op term, a work semester with Engineers of Tomorrow, helping to set up the program and get it organized for this coming school year. Just to start it off, to introduce ourselves and to give you a little bit of a background on to who we are, we'd like to tell our engineering stories. So um, my engineering story started quite young, as I've always been interested in STEM, in problem solving and logical thinking, um, in um, in this kind of line of work that you all do. I come from a line of engineers. Both my father and his father were engineers, and when I was younger, it was a large part of my household. I remember doing an activity with my father called a take apart lesson, where he would sit us down in the backyard, usually on an old cardboard box, and give us an old, sometimes an old piece of technology, whether that was an answering machine, an old printer, and then give us a screwdriver and basically say, take this apart and see what's inside. And that really built into my love for engineering and for technology and for learning how things work. Um, Currently, I am studying engineering at the University of Waterloo, in particular nanotechnology engineering. And this is a very, you may think this is a very specific and particular program, but in reality, it's very broad. And once you get down to the level of nanoscale, you can do a variety of things with it. And my goal going into this program and going through it is to learn the skills and um, get the education to help people with the technology that we have available and is being made to innovate and improve the quality of life.
Yeah, so my engineering story is a little bit different for sure. So I don't have any engineers in my family. So growing up, I always loved problem solving and science and math classes, but I didn't really know what engineering was. So in grade nine, I signed up for this class that was building bridges and model cars and airplanes. And it was called Design and Technology. So it wasn't branded as engineering, but when I was explaining it to my parents, excited to try out this class, they said, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to see you do something in engineering," which made me kind of think, "Oh, well, what is engineering?" So in high school, I started researching what is engineering, what does an engineer do, and that led me to the University of Waterloo, where I'm studying systems design engineering. And really, what I love about that is that it's a very broad program, much like nanotechnology engineering, where you have the opportunity to learn a little bit about everything and then specialize as you go. So for me, that first class of kind of being in a classroom, solving problems, getting design challenges really started me thinking, oh, engineering is very cool. And since then, I've been a little obsessed with finding out everything I can about what an engineer does, and now pursuing that in university.
Great. So now that you've heard a little bit about us, we'd like to tell you a bit about our program and also what we do here at Engineers of Tomorrow. So many of you might be wondering, what is Engineers of Tomorrow? You may have heard of our program, the Engineer in Residence program, but not necessarily the company behind it. So Engineers of Tomorrow is now officially a nationally incorporated not-for-profit organization, and we partner with engineering companies, professional associations, and educators to transform the engineering profession. We want to bring more diversity to teach the ability to learn from failure, to innovate, and solve the most important problems of the 21st century. We believe in the power of engineering outreach to shape the future, and that's why we do world-class engineering outreach, and that's why we ask you all to help us out so that we can inspire and instill capacity in others to do the same, to reach out. And by shaping the public's perception of engineering, we can change its future. And that's very important. That's why we partner with all of you engineers to bring that change and to really reach out to the young people of our communities, to inspire them to make a change and make a difference in this world. And you can learn more about our company at engineersoftomorrow.ca.
So, the EIR program, which you're hopefully familiar with at this point, and you've been looking around on the website to find out a little more about it, is the engineering outreach program for Engineers of Tomorrow. It was originally founded by PEO, and now it's running as a separate entity. So, the program pairs engineers with schools to give presentations, run activities, and help inspire students in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. So, the main objectives of the EIR program are bringing a role model of an engineer into the classroom to help engage students with fun hands-on activities, and use inclusive messaging to help engage all students and gain a better understanding of what engineering and STEM are. So this here is what comes up on Google if you search for engineer. And as engineers, you might have an idea that this is not entirely accurate as to what an engineer does. But for a lot of students and children, this is what they think of when they think of an engineer. They think it's mostly men, they're in hard hats, they have their blueprints. And of course, you know that that is not the full story.
So what would it mean to have an engineer in residence in every classroom? This is obviously not the case, but we continue to pursue having this, and it is our goal to continue to reach out to every classroom that you can. So this would mean engineering and engineer, these two words would be recognized by every Ontario student, that they would have meaning and not just relate to the pictures that you saw on the last slide. It would be more personal, and they'd have a better understanding of exactly what an engineer can be. It would mean that strong positive role models can be engineers, and that engineering would be present in when someone thinks of one of their workplace heroes or a job that is represented like that. STEM careers could be recognized as rewarding and cool. Oftentimes, people have a false mindset of STEM careers being that they're boring and you have to be academically smart and that they draw time, but that's not necessarily true. We could raise the technological literacy in all of our Ontario students. We could better gender parity in incoming engineering classes. Our K-12 teachers supported, have our K-12 teachers supported and confident in STEM, because oftentimes those teachers don't necessarily have a background in STEM to educate those students. We could build grassroots relationships in the educational system and we can have leadership building opportunities for professional engineers like yourselves. And oftentimes, in my case, in a different sense of educating young people, I've found that I can gain a better understanding of what I'm teaching those young people, and have a better grasp and bring learning to myself while teaching others these things.
Hmm. So, of course, this is our obligatory what's going to happen with COVID-19? We've been getting lots of questions about, okay, this program sounds great, but what if we can't be in the classroom in September? So, we are working to develop plans for what the program might look like if school closures continue into September. We had several engineers over the last school year, as things transitioned to online, stay connected with their classes through running virtual activities. So we are working to compile those resources, and we will continue sending emails to keep you updated as the situation develops. So now we're going to move into a couple different scenarios and start talking a little bit about the EIR teacher relationship. So the main components of this relationship are frequent communication, scheduling times and dates, deciding the order of programming throughout the year, editing details of the programming, and having an equal relationship. So one thing we do want to stress is that the teacher is obligated to always be supervising you, so you should never be left alone with the students. If you are, please let us know so we can reach out and make sure that this does not continue to happen. Uh, so you should always be working with your teacher when you're connecting with the students. So we're going to talk a little bit about some communication issues that often come up and what you can do to correct those situations. So you can't connect with your teacher throughout the year and you don't know what's going on. So you're frustrated and you aren't making the impact you expected because you can't even get into the classroom. So what do you do? First thing to do is try different mediums: email, phone, possibly meeting in person. You can try contacting the principal if your direct teacher isn't responding to you. If all of that fails, you can contact us, the EIR support team. We'll make sure to help you connect with them. And most importantly, don't let a bad experience turn you away from the entire program. Teachers sometimes get busy or they'll have schedule changes and not be able to connect with you. But one bad experience doesn't mean that there won't be a classroom you can connect with. Something to note, especially right now during the summer, is that a lot of teachers won't be checking their work emails as frequently as they are during the year. And with all the uncertainties for September, a lot of teachers are distracted and maybe working on other plans for what the school year might look like. So being patient when you're communicating with your teacher is definitely important as well.
And I'd like to stress again, if communication seems to be an issue, if you're not able to contact your teacher and it's getting close to the beginning of the year or has already gotten into the beginning of the year, please contact us and let us know, because that is the only way we'd be able to help you and be able to figure out if a communication issue is happening, is if you inform us. So we're here for you and we're happy to help you in whatever case that is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next, you need content. Your teacher expects you to have all of the content prepared and found on your own. They were told that they didn't have to help you at all and that you would find lesson plans and activities on your own. Where do you look? And our recommendation is start with our website, EIR.ca, and look in our resources tab. If you've explored our website at all, you may have found this. And in this tab, in this section of our website, we have both activities and presentations for you to access, free and all online. Next, Google is your friend, and I'm sure that we are all Google literate as people in the field of engineering. Oftentimes Google is your friend in any case, in terms of research, in terms of problem solving. The web has 1,000,001 options for you to bring to your classroom, and many of those are what you'll find on our website. Ask for help. We actually do have an EIR LinkedIn group, and it has almost 250 members that would be happy to help you. We have many many engineer and residents who are veterans to this program and who have developed and who have access to many different lessons and programs, and they have many good ideas that you can that they would be happy to share with you. So join that group. We'd love that to turn into a place of sharing and a place of encouragement and recommendation in the program. And lastly, contact your EIR support team, which would be us. We'd love to help you figure out things to do and also connect you in different ways to make finding that programming and those lessons and those activities easier.
Definitely. And as you become more confident and maybe you've connected with your class a little bit, feel free to make up your own activities. You might have a certain passion or skill that you think you can share with your class. So don't feel limited by just what's on the website or what you can find online. You can add a little bit of your own creativity and passions into your lessons as well.
Absolutely. And going along with that, feel free and don't be scared to post those lessons that you've come up with on that LinkedIn group, because as many of our engineers are in the place of not knowing what to do, your input into that and your sharing of those activities can be very helpful.
Okay, so our next scenario is that there's a bit of a disagreement. So you're running a session on electricity and you want to present a PowerPoint before getting into the activity. Your teacher insists that the children won't pay attention and suggests only doing the activity with a brief 2-minute intro. You don't think this is effective, so what do you do? Our recommendation is have faith in the teacher. They know their students best. They probably know what works best with their class, and this could change depending on what age the students are. But generally, the teacher will have a better idea of what might work, and this will change each year and with each class. So remember your time limits. You might only have 50 minutes. You might only be there for one block of time. And so you want to make the best impact in that time. So in some cases, you might plan an elaborate activity and find yourself running out of time. So adapting to be able to fit everything into your time limits is definitely an important aspect. Number one recommendation, though, is try to come up with a compromise. Definitely communicate with your teacher, talk with them, explain your thinking, listen to what they have to say, and try and come up with a compromise.
Before I move on to this slide, I'd like to bring attention to a good question from Jeremy about what the EIR LinkedIn group is. And if you are looking into that and you want to join that, please follow the link that Rebecca provided in chat. And if there's interest, we can send that out as well in our follow-up email. But you can find that within the chat window under Rebecca's last message. So finally, or the EIR student relationship, sorry. So what you should be as an engineer in residence to the students, you should be a teacher and a mentor. You are possibly the first impression of an engineer that young person has seen, has known of, and we want that first impression to be positive and to be instructional for them. You are a role model, and also you are a friendly adult that they can trust. This may be harder at the beginning of this year because of the whole COVID situation. It's largely possible that at the beginning of this year, you will be a face on a screen as virtual visits are getting closer to being a reality in our school system right now. And that doesn't necessarily mean that these different relationship descriptors and positions for you guys to be in will change. You can still be a role model, a mentor, a friendly adult they can trust, all of these things, and you can still be building relationships with these young people through online meetings. And I'm sure that with those in-person meetings, when they come, will be even better and more exciting for the students and for you guys as engineers and residents. All right. What if you have a fussy student? You're in the middle of explaining the water cycle when Jacob, a student in the class, starts screaming and speaking over you. He stands up and starts making silly faces, distracting everyone in the room. What do you do? Look to the teacher for how to discipline. They likely have a standard of way of dealing with these things, and you are not there to replace them in terms of being the teacher and being the disciplining adult in the room. You don't need to step in terms of taking a disciplinary action, and you can let the teacher deal with that student. Continue after the fact as if nothing has happened and get the focus of the room back on you and your content, because you don't want this one situation to ruin your lesson, and bringing attention to it will only boost it in terms of the minds of the young people in the classroom.
Definitely. So the last scenario we'll talk about is a bit of the girls versus boys. So you begin building bridges in your class during a force and physics session, and you overhear Kim explaining, "This sucks. This is all boy stuff." And in response, Billy says, "That's because girls aren't smart enough to be engineers." So what do you do in this situation? So our suggested solution in a scenario like this would be to speak to Kim and Billy's group specifically and reiterate the fact that anyone can be an engineer and that a diversity of skills are very important. You can reiterate to the entire class that engineering is for everyone and don't specifically call out certain students. You can just make more of a broad message. So during our webinar on diverse and inclusive messaging, we'll focus on these sorts of issues in much more depth.
All right, and that is the end of our formal presentation. Thank you for listening, and if you have to go, we will not be doing any more presenting formally. But now this is a time for some free discussion. What did we not talk about? What else are you wondering? We'd love to answer your questions, and I'm sure that many of the questions you have will be important for the whole group, and I'm sure many people will be wondering it. So please feel free to ask questions, and we will be watching the chat for those. So yeah, please type in the chat.
Hey Matthew, it's Rebecca here. Sorry, can I interrupt for 1 sec?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, if you can hear me okay. I just want to say hi to everybody too, and thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day. I'm sure you're all very busy. We really appreciate you, and really all of the volunteers are. It's really you that make this all possible. So I just wanted to take a second to say thank you to everyone. And I see some questions coming in. That's great. We love to get questions. We love that engagement, and we're happy to help. So I'll turn it back over to you, Allie and Matthew. Thank you, both of you as well. You're doing a fantastic job.
Awesome, thanks, Rebecca. So Jeremy's asking, when will you have that next webinar? So our webinars are happening every Wednesday this month of July. And actually next Wednesday in 1 week on July 22nd, we will be having our webinar for diverse and inclusive messaging. And that is
Actually, Matthew, next week is the how to tell your engineering story. And then the week after that is the diverse and inclusive messaging. So it'll be much like this one, same time, Wednesdays at noon. And we will, after the fact, be sending out all our slides and the recordings. So if you are not able to attend in person, you'll still be able to take part in the content. And we will also be sending out the slides from today as well for you to refer to later.
Kirsten is asking, is this program meant to be similar to scientists in schools?
Can I take that one, Matthew?
Please do.
I've been fortunate enough to be involved in some Scientists in the Schools workshops. I've tagged along when my own kids' teachers have brought them into their classrooms, and they run a fantastic program. It's really great content. I would say the differences between engineer and residence program and Scientists in the Schools, there's a few things. So one being that the idea with engineering residence is really to pop the E in the STEM acronym, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. So we're all engineers here, and so we can really authentically speak to the engineering side of it. Scientists in the Schools is just a little more broad than that. The other difference is Scientists in the Schools is really a more in and out type of experience. So the teacher picks a specific curriculum topic, they bring them into their class for a few hours, and then they're gone. So the kids might never see that scientist again, whereas engineer in residence is designed to be a long-term program. You're in the classroom on a regular basis. The kids get so excited when they see you. We hear from engineers too that they see the kids out in the community, like they'll bump into them at the grocery store and they'll be so excited to see you. So engineer in residence differs in that way. And there was one other thing I was going to say too. Oh, the other thing is that the engineer in residence program is much more customizable. So Scientists in the Schools, they have specific programming, they're trained to deliver just that content, whereas engineer in residence is open to be able to be flexible and customizable, like I said. So if your teacher wants to do a unit on space, for example, then that's great, for sure. We want you to be innovative. We want you to be creative and have fun with it. So those are some of the differences that that I've noticed between those two programs. So hopefully that helps, Kristen. And then there's another question there I see about measuring the results of the program. Great question. I love that question. And I'm not surprised that we get that question when we have all engineers on the line. So in terms of measurement, we do check-ins regularly throughout the year. We usually do a mid-year check-in. We always do at an end-of-the-year check-in. We send out surveys to collect data. We get feedback from you as the engineers. We get feedback from the teachers. Selectively, we sometimes can get feedback directly from the kids. That's a little more challenging because there's some pretty strict controls in place through the school board. So that usually depends on our, if we have a formal partnership in place with that particular school board that you're in. So those are some of the ways. And then we actually have, for the EIR program, we have an advisory board that supports this work. And we have some working groups that are set up, and one in particular is focused on what we're measuring, how we're measuring it, and what we're doing with that information. So if you want to find out more about that, I would be happy to explain more about the EIR advisory board and what's kind of going on behind the scenes, but hopefully that helps a little bit with the measurement question. Allie, Matthew, do you want to take back over?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see where we're at in terms of questions. Please explain more about the content, maybe give more examples, Armand says. So some examples can be, we have very general examples that are usually done by our engineers in terms of like bridge building. We have our water lesson, different hands-on experiences like that. But like we said, it's very customizable, and it all depends on kind of what the teacher is discussing, or what the teacher is going through in terms of curriculum, what the students are interested in, and what you as the engineer presenting are interested in, because it's always better for you and for the presenter to be presenting something that they are personally interested in and have an excitement for, because that excitement is very easily given to the students through your presenting, because it is usually quite obvious when someone presenting something is very passionate for it. So I hope that kind of answers the question. Allie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that sounds pretty good. So someone else was asking about getting the slides and where are the invites for the next webinar. So where you got the link for this one in that email that connected you with your teacher, there are also links for the next couple of webinars as well. So if you refer back to that email, you should be able to connect with those. But if you're having problems, please let us know and we can send you out the link.
Allie, I don't think I told you guys this, but also on the website, so if you go to EIR.ca and you click on the resources link and scroll down, there are links to all the RSVP invites to the webinars, and then once they're posted on YouTube, the link to the YouTube replay you can also find there as well.
Awesome.
Dominic is asking how many sessions per school year and the typical length of time per session. I don't know if hopefully we've answered this already by some of the other questions, but again, it's very flexible. It all depends on your schedule and the teacher's schedule. We would recommend, and our kind of goal is to have you as engineers visiting the classroom once a month, and that can be we usually find that teachers do that within a class session, so half an hour to an hour maybe. But again, that is all dependent on the communication between you and the teacher contact that you've been matched with.
I will add there, Matthew, too, that usually we find in September, the teachers are pretty busy with just getting their classroom up and running. I expect this year especially just figuring everything out for how things will run. But then once October comes, then you get into a more of a regular kind of drumbeat with your class. It's really helpful to try and get your teacher to put some dates in the calendar. We just find that everyone has a better experience when you know what to expect and they know what to expect and they can plan and you can plan and so on. So I saw someone else was asking about lessons learned and effective techniques. So there's a little lesson learned as well. And some of the coming webinars on diverse and inclusive messaging, that one in particular, has some really good tips and tricks and techniques in it. So really encourage you to check that one out if you're interested in the technique side of things.
Okay, so I think one of our next questions was, what if the teacher you've been paired with has been unresponsive when you have reached out? So as you mentioned earlier, especially with teachers during July, they're just getting out of school and it's their summer, so a lot of them are not checking their work emails very much. But as we get closer to September, if you haven't heard back, please let us know and we'll try reaching out on our end to see if we can get you connected.
Awesome. And finally, yeah, Jeremy is totally correct in terms of, like we've mentioned, reaching out to fellow engineering residents, especially local in your area, can be very helpful in terms of learning what they have found to be effective and getting that first person insight into how they've found running lessons in classrooms and what they've been using in terms of lessons and activities for their classrooms.
Okay, and then I see Thomas had a question with police check logistics. So does local refer to the closest police station to the school or the closest to your home? So when you're doing your police check, it has to be done based on your home address. So the email that you received with police check information should have some more details. If you are connected with a TDSB school, there is a separate process you need to go through. But if you're outside of Toronto, you need to be doing it with your local. So local to your home, not the school necessarily.
Yeah, that's really important. Thanks for pointing that out, Allie. It's based on your home. So even if you're matched with a TDSB school, but you don't live in Toronto, so that means your postal code doesn't start with M, you have to go to your local police station. So that's just the way that the police districts have their process set up. They won't let you get one somewhere else. And yes, you need Kristen, you're asking, do we get a full vulnerable sector or a volunteer vulnerable sector? I'm not actually too sure what the difference is there. You need a vulnerable sector check. And then usually if you tell the police station, whichever one you're going to, if you tell them you're a volunteer, sometimes that means they want a letter from us, so that's fine. We just let us know, we'll send you a letter. Sometimes if you indicate that you're a volunteer, they'll actually give you a discounted rate on your vulnerable sector check. In some districts, we can't really tell you for sure because every police district does it a little bit differently. Someone said they were able to do it online. That's awesome. Some can do them online, especially these days with the COVID protocols in place. A lot more of them have made it accessible online, which is nice. If you have any questions about your police check, just send us an email because each situation might have certain nuances or be unique.
Okay, so are there any other questions before we wrap things up?
Seems good to me.
Yeah, okay. So don't forget, as we mentioned earlier, we have the upcoming events. So next week we have a webinar to discuss sharing your engineering story. And then the week after that, we have our diverse and inclusive messaging. And that one is actually for the engineers and the teachers. So that should be a fun one where we have a bit more of a diverse group attending. And then in September, we also have the EIR program orientation. Okay, so we will be sending out an email with a survey so we can get some of your feedback to work on improving this webinar for the future and future years, as well as the upcoming webinars we have. So you should be receiving an email in the next couple days to get some feedback from you.
And please go and check us out on our different social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's not posted here, but Instagram. And these would all be under Engineers of Tomorrow or Engineer in Residence tags. And you can check us out on those. Keep following along with us as we go through the program. We post blog posts weekly, and those can be either informational on our program or just good things to think about in terms of engineers, teachers, and employers and different things like that. So we'd be happy if you check out our stories and the thoughts that we're having as we are preparing for this program.
Definitely. So thank you all for coming today and taking some time out of your day to listen to us and ask some of your questions. Hopefully this was helpful for you.
Yeah, and we are looking forward to seeing you all hopefully in our next upcoming webinars.
Thank you, Allie, and thank you, Matthew, and thanks everyone again for joining. Hope to hear from you.